I guess we should start. Looks like we have people on. First, let me introduce our esteemed panelists. Dr. Susan Shmuel is a licensed psychologist and our very own director of the SBH Mental Health Resources. She has raised her family in the community and is the mother-in-law of Shelley Shmuel. Shelley grew up in Deal and has been married to Maurice Shmuel for 7 years. They're raising their 2 kids in Brooklyn. Shelley is also a full-time working mom and has been a professional photographer for 12 years. Thank you, our 2 brave souls, for offering to do this. Okay. I can tell you that after working in the community for over 30 years, I can see that families, specifically tight-knit families, are the strength of the community. However, every strength can also be a challenge. Certainly, the tight-knit family with all its diverse personalities, its roles and expectations can be a challenge for anybody to navigate, especially when, during the summer when we're moving in together and sharing space. Sometimes in families, tensions between the various players break out, and we feel like we are either on one side or the other. Tonight, I want to keep in mind that there are not really any sides, but rather multiple perspectives. It is these perspectives that I would like to explore tonight to better understand each perspective and to gain some skills in respecting and making room for everybody's perspective. Tonight, Susan and Shelley, you not only speak for yourselves, but if you can shed some light on the perspectives of mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws in the community in general. So I'm going to start with Shelley. We're going to shoot you a question, and you can talk about what are some of the challenges of being a daughter-in-law in the mother-in-law's, living in the mother-in-law's house for the summer, and what that's like.
So the first thing that I would say is probably managing like the different parenting styles in the household. It's hard to maintain your own way of doing things when you're living under someone else's roof.
Your voice is kind of low. Is there a microphone or somewhere you can get? Oh, there. That's better.
So yeah. I feel like it's hard to maintain your own way of doing things because it's not your own household. So you're trying to keep, like, you're trying to do what? Oh, I feel like it's hard to keep up with the way you normally do things in your own house and for your own family, but you're living under someone else's roof and you're trying to be respectful of their house rules and the way they do things, and not even just like, let's say, your mother-in-law and father-in-law, but also maybe like in-law siblings and, the way they handle things with their kids. So I think that's the hardest part.
Okay. So can you break that down where the differences might be? What areas the differences might be?
What do you mean?
Like whether it's parenting styles or, who runs the kitchen or who's feeding the kids at dinner time and things like that.
Yeah. So I think in our house, I would say we do, I don't know, I feed my kids, but if I talk to my mother-in-law in advance, I feel like you'll feed them. Right. Everything is about talking about it. You have to communicate exactly how you expect things to be done. So if there's any expectations of things being done a certain way, the most successful way to make sure that they get done in the best way for everybody, for like the overall household, is to clearly communicate about it.
And also respect. Really, they respect Shelley and my other daughter-in-law. They each have young kids. They do have very different parenting styles, but they respect each other's styles and their, each other's rules. And, one of my grandkids doesn't watch screens. The other one does. So when that kid comes into the room, screens go off, or we really try to accommodate each other and respect each other's, parenting styles and communication. That's really very key.
Right.
Discussing it and.
Right. Okay. So the communication being clear as to what you need, what you want, and not necessarily really just expecting something without talking about it is key.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to jump over to Susan. Okay, your turn. What are the challenges of being a mother-in-law in the house with multiple families living with you?
I'm just clarifying here. I'm not going to only discuss my own personal challenges.
Right. In
I,
general, in general.
I've been in all of these roles. I've been, the daughter-in-law, and I lived with my parents for 20 years in the summer. It's like I've been in both roles. In my profession, I've worked with many families who have been struggling. So I'm going to try and give a lot of different perspectives, not just mine. And the first thing I want to say is it's really hard. Logistically, it's just hard to run a house with so many people in it. Most parents I know want all their kids to be happy, and a lot of times it's very hard figuring out, this Shabbat I'm going to make what this one loves, and the next Shabbat I'm going to make what that one loves, and I know this one loves these. It's just logistically really hard. Everyone getting up and getting ready for camp and work. We have 2 bathrooms in the house, which really, makes it very difficult. Saturday night after Shabbat, I don't go into the shower until 1:30 in the morning because it's just being flexible. Um, a lot of people in the house.
So like you said, it's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of communication because there's a lot to communicate because not only like does each family have needs, but every person within the families have needs and expectations. So everyone is trying to help everyone manage those. And so logistically, there's a lot being juggled.
The shopping is overwhelming. Grocery shopping, the cooking it's a lot, especially as someone who works full time and has a tough job. I need a lot of support from them, and thankfully we do have a relationship where if I just can't do it, like if I just know I turn to her, and she knows if I'm asking I really need the help, and she's going to do her best to help out and do whatever I need. It's really about knowing um, what my limits are when I need to reach out for help, and reaching out when I do need the extra
Right.
support.
Okay. So in general, maybe not your own stuff, but can you talk what is it about when kids have so many differences? You mentioned the different parenting styles, maybe different religious observances, maybe different even communication styles and how they communicate. How do you navigate those differences, or how do you recommend other people navigate those differences?
One thing I could say, like from the start, is egos need to be left at the door. When you're living multiple families in one household, and we try to focus more on what could we give, not what we could get. Like we really need to be conscious of, have that mindset of what am I going to do to help out my mother-in-law? What am I going to do to help out my sister-in-law? And not, I can't believe she's asking me to do this. Doesn't she know how hard my week was? We really try to look at it from a positive way. Um, I have a very good saying I go by all the time. You could be right or you could be happy. So really, being flexible and, being respectful and just looking at the way we go into each interaction and navigating tensions, where is it coming from? And that's all about building relationships. You need to really work on your relationship together. None of the answers that we give you are going to be like rocket science. We don't know this. The truth is, while we may know what the right thing to do is, it's very hard in real life to do it. It's really hard to work on relationships. It's really hard to build on them. But without that foundation and without that trust in each other, and that
Right.
that's what you really need to work on. Building that relationship, that communication, the respect, the trust,
Right.
And
So what I'm hearing you say, which I just want to highlight because I think it's really important, is that, the relationship is much more important than any one moment, right? So that moment of agreement or disagreement might be important, but the overall relationship is so much more important than that one
yeah,
moment. And keeping that in mind, even when it gets difficult, is so much more important. Okay, so Shelley, I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to tell on your mother-in-law now. Let's do
Okay.
this. I'm a grandfather. I love giving candy to my kids,
oh,
right? My grandkids.
No,
I love spoiling them.
this
You
is our
know,
biggest issue.
this is our biggest,
you
yeah.
know. So how do you deal with when your boundaries and what your rules at home are so different than the way your in-laws are parenting your children
That's
and
so different.
and that
Yeah. Yeah.
so what are some of the ideas that either you've dealt with or you've heard your friends deal with?
So, gonna continue off of the candy example that you were going with. Um, I don't care to give my kids candy. I give them candy or sugar with, everything in moderation. But definitely when they come to grandma's house, it's there's no cap on what they're going to be given. And I also don't, the way I approach it is like, I don't want to be controlling of their relationship. Like, Sue, my daughter, knows when she comes to grandma's house, she's going to be spoiled, loved. She gets whatever she wants. Like, she's happy here and she's comfortable here. And she has a very special relationship with my mother in law, which I also love. So, just going with the candy example, if I'm going to step in every time she gets what I think is like too much candy or more than I would give her, I'm going to start to step into that relationship. I don't want to control what her grandma is giving her and spoiling her with. And I also don't want to leave Sue with that feeling of tension in the house that like she's in also. Like she'll feel that she won't, I don't know, she'll pick up on it and I don't know, do something with it. She's very smart. So
Yeah,
I'll
and
tell you, I'll tell you,
yeah.
I let her give and give and give. And if I see she's getting wild, or if I see maybe like it's time to cut back, I'll say it just like that. Okay. Like, okay, really, think that's where we're going to cut it off for today. Last piece. So last one, your warning, I try to keep it in agreement with her so she doesn't feel that friction.
And I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. It makes me very happy that she's flexible and she lets me, you know, have that type of relationship with Sue. And I'm mindful of that as well. Like going into the summer when it's one thing when she's coming to my house on Shabbat, and I could buy her a special treat and buy her candy. But when we're living together, things have to change also. I need to adapt because it can't be candy morning, noon, and night every day, now that we're living together. So I have to adjust also and be mindful of, but I definitely really appreciate how she lets me.
Awesome. So you're appreciating the feedback is also very important when you get feedback, to not take it as an insult, but take it as important feedback and information. I love that.
And you could apply it to anything. Like the candy is just, you could apply it to like screen time or play time or presents or um, anything. It's a good thing to like take from it is that we're we're in like we both are under one roof, but like we have our own relationships with her, which are fine, and we respect each other's relationships with her. But right now, we're like doing this sort of together. So we want to, find some sort of bridge between both of our approaches to this situation.
Right.
And so we find that in between that, like we're both comfortable with.
Okay. Great. Okay. One more question to Susan, and then we're going to go to some audience questions that we've gotten in. Susan, what happens when you observe your children doing something that you disagree with, or they're responding to you in a way that they disagree with, or what, for example, I know that a big tension, when we're not living together over the summer, I know that a big tension in the community is, when, let's say children don't show up to their parents for certain meals, or holiday meals, or don't show up when they're wanted. How would you recommend somebody deal with that?
Okay, that look, times have changed. When I was a newlywed, it was very strict. First night was the boys' family. Second night was the girls' family. They were really strict protocols, but you can't do that anymore. It's really too difficult. You have to be more flexible. Kids, our adult kids are under a lot of pressure. You don't know why they're saying that they can't come. There could be so many. We don't know what's going on. It could be, I mean, there's so many different things that could be happening, why they're saying no. So I don't pressure them. And it happens to be where Shelly's parents live in Deal. We spend most of our holidays in Brooklyn. So if she's going to her family in Deal, we miss the whole holiday with them. But, I have to learn to accept that. I get her most Shabbats and Friday nights because she's living here in Brooklyn. Like, do I miss them at holiday? Of course, I miss them terribly. But I can't put that extra stress. Life is just too stressful. I know they're trying, I know. And it goes back to that relationship that we've built and the trust we have in each other. And I know, that she's going to do her, she's doing her best. And that's all, I have to accept that. I can't put the extra pressure.
Right, right. Great. I mean, I do know that, sitting in my seat, we're across from a lot of couples on a regular basis. I hear how much just even a passing comment from a mother-in-law could put pressure on a relationship, even the best of relationships. So hearing, your idea of acceptance and is such a positive and important thing. Okay. So we've gotten some questions over the last couple of weeks from the audience that I want to throw at you guys, and see how you feel about, and see how you do with them. So I'm going to start with the first question, and both of you can respond, or let me know what you think. I'm so grateful to be with my in-laws for the summer because I couldn't afford the rent, but I feel like there are strings attached. They have expectations and use it as leverage and control. So what's your thought? What's
That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I'll take that one because I guess I'm the
Okay.
daughter-in-law. I guess I am. So I feel like any issue that comes from living together, of course, you need to like discuss it respectfully, but I don't know. I feel like you need to you need to be able to come to some sort of agreement on any situation that you're specifically dealing with. So it's the same theme again. It's clearly communicating, but also it's having the boundaries put in place for yourself that you need to protect. So that way, then you can clearly communicate exactly and honestly how you feel and what you need and when you expect. And when you approach any relationship and any situation like that, I think most of the time people are going to meet you where you're at. If you're honestly asking for something that you need, saying something you can't do, saying you don't like when someone does this, or saying I'm trying, but I can't be there Friday night. If, say like they're trying to pull a string and you are doing your best, but you can't give what you want, clearly communicating it, honestly, so that it doesn't like take from you too much. I think they're going to respect that. And then if you're in a situation where, let's say you don't feel like they're like, maybe you already tried discussing it, or maybe the topic is too sensitive, for you to like discuss it further. I feel like the best approach is to just manage your own expectations going in further. You know that this specific thing is something that comes up a lot during the summer, and it's either sensitive or it's been brought up too many times, or you just don't want to go there. You can't change someone else. You can't adjust their sales, and you can't change your situation other than what you bring into it and how you approach it. So do some inner workings, to, protect your mental peace, but to understand that you're not going to change anything outside of yourself. So knowing that going in, like, you can just let things slide, and you could um, brush things more easily off your shoulders, because I really think everyone's just doing their best coming in. So even if it feels like that, like everything I just said.
So,
Yeah.
Shelley, I'm going to give you your honorary mental health degree. I love that. You said two things that I just really want to really highlight that I think are so important. One is, I think I'm going to put it up in my office as a poster. My boundaries must be clear in order for me to communicate them, right? If I'm not clear with what my boundaries are, then of course, I haven't communicated them because I'm not clear, right? And you need to know what your boundaries are in order for you to then be able to communicate it. I think that is so important, and that is, that's a really important lesson of life, not just this. The other piece that you said is that, what I tell my clients all the time is that any relationship you're in, you own 50%, which means you can make it 50% better without the other person changing anything. And the only thing you can think about is what is it that you can change to make it better, not so much what everybody else needs to change. And I'm hearing that from you also. That's,
No, you said it better.
fantastic.
That.
Okay.
I want
Okay.
to add to that.
Oh, please.
Things, a very wise man once said to me, keep your mouth shut and your wallet open. And I've really, taken that to heart. I want my kids to know, like, what we are able to give them, we give them with a full heart. And, when there's strings attached, there's, it builds resentment, and the whole purpose of helping them and supporting them is sort of lost. It ends up to be something that's a contention between them. And, like I said, like, there's too much stress out there to begin with. We don't want to add extra stress. I want them to know that whatever we can give, we do, and it's given with, with love, and we want what's best for them. We want them to be happy.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Second one, this is a doozy. I know this is a hard one. Okay. My kids get into arguments in front of me when they're living with me in the summer. How or should I respond? So, married children get into arguments in front of the in-laws. How are the in-laws supposed to deal with that?
Okay, so it depends, honestly, it depends on the intensity of the argument. If it's just like, typical, typical arguing, I will not offer any advice unless asked, for sure. Like, I'm not throwing my 2 cents in there. If they ask me, like, what do I think? Then I let them know what I think. There was a situation when they first got married, and they were having an argument, and I was in the room. I don't remember why. I didn't remember what the argument was about, but my son looked at me and he's like, "Ma, what do you think? Come on." And I said, "I think Charlie's right." And he almost killed me. He was like, "What? You're my mother. How could you take her side?" And I was like,
That's great.
first of all, there's no sides. We're all in this together. There's just different perspectives. But if you're asking me my opinion, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. And I felt Charlie was, what she was saying.
I wish I knew what this was about.
And that's it. I'm not saying you're right just because you're my kid. Not happening.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. I do want to highlight the idea that, maybe to all those son-in-laws out there, that maybe it's not a good idea to ask your mother-in-law, what she thinks in the middle of an argument with your wife. Probably not the best move.
Right. I don't have any son-in-laws right now, so then I can't even comment on that. Only have daughter-in-laws right now, but
So,
I say what I feel, but what I believe.
Right. Right. Just reading through some of the comments as they're. What? I'm sorry.
No, I said, but like you said, like, only I would apply that to also, again, everyone keeps saying this is like only about like mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, but like you're really living with the whole family or whoever's in the house. It's like you could apply that to anything. Like you're like the better relationships, like you should focus on like giving, like my mother-in-law said, but giving your 2 cents where it's not asked in anyone's argument in the house is not a good idea. So like if they ask you, give your 2 cents, but if it's not asked for, definitely don't.
And like I said before, it depends on the intensity of the arguments. If the arguments are really concerning to me, I would not get involved in that time, but I would follow up with a conversation with both, either my son and daughter, like both parties. I would have a conversation in private, separately, at a later time when things have calmed down. If I saw something that concerned me. But
Right,
not in the moment.
right, right. I'm looking through the comments as they come up. It looks like our audience agrees that, in-law parents should not vote in on the arguments between their children and their in-law children.
Usually I
Okay.
try to hightail it out of the room, but all of a sudden
Okay.
something's going off the dryer. I don't know, something.
Okay. So here's a third question. I guess this goes to both of you, really. My husband plays basketball on Saturday morning, and my family wants to eat lunch early. How do I navigate making everyone happy?
So funny because we happen to have this
We have this exact
issue.
issue. I tell Maurice to come home at a certain time. We're hungry.
Right.
We're hungry. You have to be considerate of the whole family. So yes, this person wants to play basketball. Go play basketball. Important to you, so it's important to us. But then on the vice versa, okay, but it's also important that you think of the house and being mindful of, if it's Saturday before lunch and you're coming home at 1:30, maybe that's not so considerate for everyone waiting to say kiddush and eat. But if you're gonna play ball, come home at a time where is respectful to the rest of the family, whatever time it is that you might eat, and make sure that people aren't really like waiting on you, And if it's agreed upon that it's more important to them or to you, like if you're not agreeing, then say kiddush without them.
Right. There has to be
a mutual
and
agreement.
there has to be a conversation. Look,
Yeah.
we want you to go have fun and play ball, but just know, 1:15 is the cutoff. We're making kiddush at 1:15, and
then you leave it to
can't
them.
get insulted if we made kiddush without you. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. We're be honest and it
Okay.
is what it is. We try to
So,
accommodate everyone, but at the end of the day,
right. So we're back at communication. We're back at, being clear of what the expectation is and being able to tell people what they think and, whatever it is. Just adding in here, I think what I'm hearing from you is the way you're talking about it is without judgment, right?
Oh.
It's not why do you need to play basketball?
No.
It's hey, this is what our need is and this is where we're at. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
my husband and I made like a conscious decision when we were raising our kids. We raised them to be independent and strong-minded. That was a very conscious decision. But then when they become adults, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, they're making what does that mean? I can't tell them what to do anymore. All of a sudden it's sort of
adults
hits,
who's 3 and she's very.
But you have to really respect when, that's how, that's what we've always wanted them to do, and we have to respect it. It might not be choices that we make, but it's their life, it's their choice. We just have to respect it.
Some people, I also feel like it's important to know, might have all these kinds of discussions at the beginning of the summer, and some people go with the flow. If it's like 2 weeks in a row, you're already waiting. The third week, and you're trying to be flexible and easygoing. Week 3, before they walk out the door, it's like, wait, before you go play, and I don't know when I'm going to see you. We're doing this. This is what we think. We're going to say kiddush. I think 1:15 is fair, and be home by then. if you can't, for some reason you can't, just don't be upset when we already said kiddush, you know? And there's different ways of like approaching how you're going to have these conversations. If the household is easygoing enough and everyone is able to do these kinds of things on the fly, then do what works for you. But for some people, there just might be too much friction. One thing after the other needs to be a discussion. It's easier to just sit down and like one or two times
as a family
as a
and have a
family,
family meeting.
yeah, and
iron
figure out what
This is
works.
how,
Okay.
I've had friends who have schedules. This daughter's cooking this night. This daughter-in-law's cooking that night. This one makes dairy. This
Some
one
people
makes,
need to
and
be more regimented like
right.
that. And that works. That works for that
Yes, that
household. It might
works
not
for.
work in another household.
You have to know what works for your family and do it together as a group. And
Yeah.
So awesome. Because so again, a lot of these coping mechanisms are not one size fits all. We have to figure out what works with our family and how to do it. And just because you're doing it on the fly doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means you're doing it differently.
Yeah.
we
That's
are
Also,
that.
definitely
we're on the
less
fly.
formal. We're not a schedule type. We are big family meetings and discussions on how we want to do things, but definitely not that structured. But there are families where that would work much better and things need to be more concrete.
But
And that's
also, we've
fine.
been living together in the summer for 7 years. So
Right.
things have become routine. Things have become, but new situations arise all the time. So, like now that everyone is having kids and they're getting bigger and you face like different sorts of challenges, you're going to have these again. And it's okay. Like if you need to keep communicating, keep figuring out, and adjusting as your family grows and um, time goes on, then you need to do that.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Now we're going to take the gloves off and we're going to go to the harder
Gloves off
round.
now. What happened?
Round two questions get a little bit more difficulty, and I've heard this complaint before, so I don't think it's just one person. I guess part of my question to you guys is why do you think it happens this way, and what to do about it? The question that we got is my mother-in-law thinks her daughter is perfect and everything she does is great, yet criticizes everything I do, which is why I think mother-in-laws get that reputation. So why do you think that's such a common complaint, a common perception, and how do you cope with it from both ends, really?
So it's very hard. I try very hard, and I always had, like, I've always really never compared my kids. Like, my husband and I worked very hard on not comparing them, and trying to avoid sibling rivalry whenever we could, and cheering each of their strengths. And my kids are all very different. They're not similar at all. Um, but we really always try to cheer on their strengths, and not not be competitive with them and not compare them. And when it comes to daughters and daughter-in-laws, it's tough. A mother has been with her daughter her whole life. She's raised her. They have a relationship, and your daughter-in-law comes in, and it's not that you don't love her and you don't, but there's just that special bond between mothers and daughters. So I think one of the things you can do is do things with your daughter-in-law to build your relationship with her. Like, do fun things with her. Like, work on having that relationship with her. You can't really change your mother-in-law. Like, you have to um, work on yourself, and do things that could build you up, and change your expectations. And then as a mother-in-law, I would say to others out there, do things with your daughter-in-law that are fun. Work. Shelley recommended a book series to me last summer. So and to my daughter, and this entire year we've spent, reading these
No, all I
18
send you are
book
memes
series,
about these
sending
books.
memes to each other. Like, you need to have fun together and enjoy life, and we're going to Switzerland this summer to see Taylor Swift together. Like you have to like really do these fun things to build your relationship and, have a friendship, show interest in each other's lives, and, hopefully that will sort of change how the relationship,
That's so cute.
Okay. So Shelley, from the other end, what would you say to a daughter-in-law who's having these feelings? What can she do to change it or to cope with it?
Um, I think everything my mother-in-law said is like spot on. I think that's really all I would say. I would put effort into trying to build up the relationship. You could also reach out to your mother-in-law to do cool things. I think I bullied you to read these books.
Yes, you
Because
did.
no one wanted to read them. I'm like, they're about fairies, but they're
I don't
good.
have time
I
to read
promise.
books.
It's okay. But then you, like, whatever, like you put in the effort. And again, hopefully your mother-in-law meets you halfway, meets you where you're at. And, you both put in that effort and the relationship builds like any. But if you see that it's not reciprocated or not the same way, then it's just understanding what each relationship is, and accepting it for what it is. Like you said, you could give your 100%, but that's only 50% of the relationship. And you can keep putting in that 100%. You shouldn't like scale back. You shouldn't like take your love back and take, what you want to put in away. But it's very hard to not want to be nice to and be friends with and love someone who's nice and offering things and trying to befriend you and being respectful,
Shows interest.
is happy, is positive. If someone approaches you with all these, it's like the grand prize. It's like, oh, great. Like, I want to be your friend, you know? So it's working on who you are and what you can offer and being the best version of yourself. And you're just like hoping that, you're met. It's reciprocated. But again, managing expectations. If it's not, it's what it is. And you're just making the best of that, of where you're at.
Wow, awesome advice. Awesome advice. I see that in the comments in coming up that people also were very touched by that. So thank you very much for that advice. Okay. Next one. These get harder as we go, I notice. So,
Not harder? Okay. Throw it out.
all right. My mother-in-law never addresses me. If she has any complaints or issues with me, she goes through my husband, which causes problems between us. What do I do? Okay, so either one of you can jump in here on which end of you want to deal with that, but how do you deal with that?
Yeah, this is a very difficult one. And from a mother-in-law's perspective, I mean, there's several issues with this. First of all, if you always go through your son, then you're not building that relationship with your daughter-in-law. Part of calling her, if you never call your daughter-in-law, you always call your son, whether it's to talk about holidays or, Shabbat or whatever. You're not building that relationship. You're not taking advantage of opportunities you have to know her and to learn about her and to see what she wants and what she needs and is she okay with that. It's really a lost opportunity. Um, Second, it could cause friction between them, and that's between the spouses. That's the last thing you want to do. You really don't want to cause friction. Being young, married with kids, tuition like these days, it's so hard. It's really life is so hard. Everything is so hard. You don't want to be a cause of more friction between them. So if I'm upset for whatever reason with something Shelly did, I'm gonna call her and we're gonna talk it out. I'm not gonna call my son and tell him, do you know what your wife did? No, absolutely not. I don't want to cause more problems between them, and I want to take the opportunity to, work on, our relationship and what happened and how we can move forward and what we're gonna do about it. It's things get I can't tell you how many times
That's
I've
what I wanted
seen
to say.
families,
Things get misconstrued,
in my
miscommunicated.
office, and
It's
miscommunication
broken
is,
telephone.
the biggest issue, really. We're all part of a family. We're all part of a system. You know, all the parts of the system have to be working, and if they're not, the system falls apart. That's just the way, way it is. And
Right. So you're giving two really important reasons to go straight directly to your daughter-in-law. One is you want to build that relationship. If you want to build that relationship, you have to communicate directly. And the other one is you don't want to put a stress on your child's relationship with their spouse. That's not where you want to be. You want to protect that relationship rather than put an extra weight on it. So I think that those are two really positive advices. Um, once that happens, though, should the daughter-in-law, maybe I'm asking you, Shelley, is that a good idea for the daughter-in-law to say, come back and say, hey, I invite you if you have a problem, come talk to me, come let me know that you have a problem. I want to hear it. I want to be, is that a way of, dealing with that?
It's a good way to deal with it as long as you say respectfully. If you say, I don't know if you were embarrassed, not embarrassed, maybe is not the right word. Like if you felt like I would be embarrassed, or if you felt like, I don't know, like it was inappropriate to say, or I don't know, for whatever reason you didn't want to come to me, I would have been okay if you came to me. And next time I would love if you, and prefer if you came to me, because it would give me a chance to work on it and hear it from you versus hearing it from my husband, who might have misunderstood. Maybe he misunderstood like the reason. Maybe he broke in telephone, like just said it wrong. Because things can get lost in translation very easily. It's like one word can change the entire like tone of a sentence.
especially when men are involved.
Especially. So it's no,
I won't take that personally, but
it's
okay.
not, I don't think it's a problem with saying that.
And in the same vein, I would not want her to go to my son if she's not happy with something I did. I hope she would feel, confident enough to come to me and work it out me. We don't need,
Yeah.
it's the quickest way to solve something, and it's an opportunity to build our relationship.
Yeah, also like doing fun things with your in-laws is like the best way to like you said, like it's like you didn't grow up with them, you don't have the childhood memories, you don't have the family vacations, you don't have all of that like history that like makes, like the fun and happy parts of the relationship develop, like blood family members. But the small things of like, why are you and your siblings like so close? Because like when you guys beat each other up and then you make up and like you're stronger, and like something as small as like opening the door to pick up the phone and make a phone call and just communicate something easily is like, I actually appreciate that you feel comfortable enough calling me to like talk about this, even if it's like stupid, even if it's like, I don't know, I can't think of an example, you and Sarah go for dinner and I want to come. It's like, I want to come. And it's like, thanks for telling me. Next time, maybe we thought you were working. Okay, next time I'll ask anyway.
Right.
Like something.
Right.
We have some questions, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What
think
are
they're good
some
questions.
examples of fun things to do together? Anything that I love,
Dinner.
I would want to share, like it doesn't have to be, it could be something that as an individual, I happen to love reading. She happens to love reading. So she recommended a book and we did a series together. A spot, we were away for Passover. We did a girl spa day, all the girls. Like it doesn't, it could be dinner, just showing interest in. She's a photographer. I always look through her work on Instagram and comment on her work and tell her when I see, I mean, she's amazingly talented, but when I see a particular shoot that she did that I love, I tell her and I talk about it with her. It's nothing like you don't have to go, to Switzerland. We could, it's really little things, but doing them often and really showing an interest in her life and in her interests and what she's doing, and I genuinely want her to be happy, and I want us, we're in this together, so I think that's really important, the genuineness and really caring.
I
Okay.
missed out on all the Twilight bonding you and Sarah did. So now I'm making up for it, and I spam them with TikToks and memes, and like I missed out on that. I had that myself, but
Okay, wait.
now
Right.
See. Then
what?
What if they
they
don't pick
never
up after their kids' toys? So, the family's coming in and they don't pick up after their toys.
ask, say, look, I'm afraid someone might trip. Do you mind picking up the kids' toys at the end of the day? And just, to be fair, I wouldn't ask her to pick up their toys 10 times a day. I would ask her a few times, if the kids are sitting playing on the floor with Legos, I'm not going to ask her to have them pick up, the floor. But once the kids go to another room and the Legos are still there, I'm very comfortable asking her to
Yeah.
have the kids pick up the toys. And, it's communication. It's, she might be so busy with so many other things she doesn't realize that the kids are on, the toys are on the floor. Their kids are on to the next activity and she's chasing them, so it depends on the situation. But if you have to know like your own boundaries, and if something really bothers you, have that respectful communication about it.
And if you like give that communication, then as a daughter-in-law, even if you're chasing them to the other room, if they did leave that room and like that would really eat at your mother-in-law, then try to shove them close to the bag before you run to the next room. If like you're worried about them, being out of sight for too long. If you're like, you can't tidy up too much, shove them next to the bag. And then if you see they're good, then go put them back in the bag,
Right.
Like do your best. Sometimes your best is not even the whole thing, but something is better than nothing. So if you're gonna, try to do, if you're gonna try to do as close as you can to what they ask for, they'll also notice that,
Right.
I
So I just want to highlight something Susan said, with respectful communication. People sometimes, we take for granted that they understand what respectful communication means. I think the easiest way to get to respectful communication is communication without judgment. When we drop the judgment, suddenly the communication is different. So if I'm telling somebody that they're bad or doing something wrong because they didn't pick up their toys, that's not going to work so well. But if I say, hey, it really makes me feel better when the toys are put away, and it would work for me if we did this, that's going to be the piece that's the difference in the respectful communication, because there's no judgment involved.
yeah.
And also no anger involved.
Yeah.
When you're
Right.
telling someone something in anger, it's never going to come out right, and it's never going to be received right. So really being able to,
Yeah.
you know,
We've been emphasizing a lot on like the clarity of communication, but also like the calmness
the
is like a
tone,
big factor.
the
Yeah.
tone.
Right. Right. All
Like
of those are
someone
very
asked,
important. Okay.
what if they never appreciate anything, no matter what they feel entitled? It's, you can't
It's tough,
expect.
right?
I mean, it's hard, but,
It's hard.
um,
I think that
again, you have to
goes.
manage
I
your,
think that goes back to what you kind of said. You can't really change the other people. You can only
yes.
change what you do. So how do I approach that in a positive way? How do I be positive even though I feel that they're taking advantage? Coming to it with a positive spin might get them to hear something different rather than the negative spin.
Yeah. Also,
You know,
again, circling back to another theme, which is giving. If you're trying to be giving in a household, um, you're not focused on getting in return. It's not like a tit for tat situation. Like that's not how households run. It's like, oh, I put in so I can take out. Like, if you're just focused on giving and being the person in the household that the putting the energy in that you want there to be, then that's
right,
already going to make it
And it's
better.
hard. We're not saying it's not
No,
hard. It's
it's
hard.
not easy.
right.
It's hard. And it takes
I,
time.
Ironically, I tell my clients all the time the fastest way to get something out of a relationship is to be the first to introduce it into the relationship. So if you want more respect, if you want more listening, if you want more, the fastest way to get it out of the relationship is by you listening and doing it first, and that will set a different tone for your relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Um,
Did we have other?
okay.
There was one more here that came in.
Okay. So there was one more on the paper beforehand that we had. It's also, again, a little bit of a doozy. My mother-in-law is a widow and she is very controlling. How do I navigate it?
Oh, boy.
Okay. So, you
Oh, I want
know,
to throw in your,
Yeah, you can give some advice on this.
anybody want to throw this in?
very hard. And it's
So,
not, believe it, I've had this come up in therapy multiple times, and you know,
I think that the reason controllingness comes off is because it is a very close relationship to caring. Caring and controlling are sort of very close to each other. And when people care in a too active way, it becomes controlling. So I think, you're not going to change her, right? We already said the fastest way to peace is not to try to change somebody else. But I think looking for the positive and focusing on the care, and it may mean that she needs more care herself in return. And that's the things that you can change yourself. But a lot of times when people are controlling, it's because they're extending care to the utmost degree, and that's when we feel controlled. Uh, so, it might be a reflection of what she needs herself.
Right.
Um,
I think you can also talk about protecting your own peace again. Also, being if you and your spouse are on the same page, which you need to be, then if you clearly and strongly protect your own boundaries, then no one can control you. You won't feel controlled. You'll be able to protect yourself and also be able to then you'll be in a place of peace enough to see that she might have her own needs that she's trying to communicate that she needs met, and when your own cup is filled and you're able to and you feel at peace enough, you could
my dog is upset.
you could do your best to give a little more of that. So
awesome advice. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Okay. So,
I want to
okay.
add something. I'm sorry. Also,
oh my
like
God,
just
Harley,
trying to
take the phone.
like really be kind. Kindness should be in all our interactions with our in-laws, and it's hard being a widow. Like it's just try to keep her perspective in your mind as well. How she sees things and how she sees your relationship.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're coming to an end here. Anything you guys would like to add? I've been taking notes from our discussions, and I just want to highlight some of the things we've talked about. Obviously, communication and positive communication is the number one coping skill. That seems to be a clear thing. Clearly telling people what you want and what you expect, and not expecting it without discussing it. That seems to be a second one. Being able to.
I just want to add something to that. If you're planning on going out at night thinking that your in-laws are homebodies and never go out, don't do that. Ask them. Ask them if they could babysit that
Right.
night. Just want a
Right.
tip for the daughter-in-laws.
That goes to the clear communication,
Yes.
right? Not assuming what's going to happen here. On the other end, of the communication is appreciating the feedback. When somebody does communicate with you and lets you know where they're at, really being open to appreciate that feedback and accept it, in a positive way. And looking at that in a positive way. Your boundaries must be clear in order for you to communicate them. So really knowing where you're at with yourself, as well as Shelley, you added in afterwards, sort of you and your husband being on the same page, right? You guys being together, knowing what you want and where your boundaries are, so that you can communicate them clearly. I think we talked about, trying to facilitate positive in the relationship, hanging out together, befriending each other, looking for the positive. We talked about not comparing children, never, having the comparison. And believe it or not, one of the things we said more than once, which I think is the most important thing that happens in all of these kind of things, is work on yourself to change rather than working on everybody else to change around you. That's really going to be the most important thing that we do. So those are some of the things that we've talked about through this process that I think are really important.
And I know everything that we've discussed is really hard. But you have to put in the work to get the results. And I do have to say, we've been working on this for 7 years, and I appreciate her so much. I love that we trust each other, and she knows if she's asking me for something, I'm going to do my best to do it. And if I can't, she accepts that, and I love that. I love the informalness of our relationship. I love that I could put a tin on the table Friday night and she won't have a heart attack.
Oh, you're so cute. You cook a banquet. Like, I don't need a platter.
I mean, the respect we have for each other. It's hard work, but it's so worth it. And it doesn't just affect our relationship. It affects the whole family. Like, it affects everyone. It rubs off on, her kids and the tone of the house. And it's just, things are so hard out there right now. I can't imagine coming home every day after work and coming home to tension, and just
No one
that,
wants to live in that.
no, that feeling. It's, yes, it's hard work, but it's so worth it. And you know, once you train yourself to do things, and I literally think before everything I say, to all my family members. I'm very careful. Is it sensitive? Do I need to say this? Should I say this? Is it necessary? And that's hard, but it it really makes such a huge difference.
Wow. Wow. Well, I want to thank you guys for doing this.
Closing things I want to say too.
Okay, great.
Okay, one is that I know this is called living with the in-laws, and we keep talking about the in-laws, but you marry the family also, so they are your family now too. So just referring to every in-law interaction as my in-laws, the in-laws, his side, his family, is like causing that disconnect in yourself too. And like, I know not everyone has like our relationship, a very close relationship. Some people don't even have like, some people have, more difficult ones. And trying to see your in-laws as your family too now, because they're going to be the grandparents to your kids. Like they're part of the tribe and the village that everyone talks about, being there, that, you can't do it without them. Present or not, they're your village. So you want to treat them. You don't just like have to, because like you do have to, but like you should like want to treat them with the respect. You should want to grow those relationships. You should want it to be good. Like you don't want to just survive. So like, especially living together in a household, even more so, I would say bringing the energy that you want to like every interaction can be like, exhausting, but like bringing the energy you want in the house. If you're that energy, like I keep repeating, most of the times, like it'll be reciprocated or matched, and you'll find that like you have a much happier home, not just like surviving the summer. Like you just got to get through the summer. I hate hearing that, like me and my kids sleep in the same room. So like it's hard for me to like, okay, you gotta like, whatever. It's hard, and my kids particularly don't sleep. But this summer I said, you know what? It's hard, but it's so worth it because they live with their grandparents. Our family's so close. It's so nice. like, I don't want to get through summer. I don't want to wish it to be over because like this summer is a gift, you know, and like the opportunity to be close with everyone is a gift. So like, it's not always easy to be positive and to be like good energy, but like, if you bring as best you can of that to the house, giving and not just focusing on what you can get, what you can take, expecting from people, that approach, I think, is like the band-aid to all, you know. I think that's just like the one size fits all, to having like a good summer with everyone.
That's awesome advice. Thank you. I think that's great. Clearly, you guys have worked on it and you have something special, and it's contagious, I hope. I think everybody here feels it, and there's nobody walking away, even myself included, having learned new things tonight. So I want to thank all of you, thank both of you for being here, and thank everyone for hanging on and coming on with us.
Wait,
Okay, have a
one
good
more
night.
thing. I wait
Oh,
one more thing.
okay.
I also really want to thank you, Ma, because like you thanked me for all those things, but like I'm appreciative and I'm like obsessed with everything you do and give us and all of that. So that can't go without being said because it's like you set the tone for the house. You make the relationships with the kids and you make the house like open to everyone, not just me. Like my friends feel comfortable in our house. So
So sweet.
that's what makes summer so great also.
Just like I remember the 20 years that I spent in my mom's house, and even though it was my mom, not my mother-in-law, it was hard. They were great times, and as much as I thought, how hard it was. If you ask my kids what some of their best memories are, some are by grandma and grandpa. Those are their best memories. Those thank goodness only saw the good parts of it. And I want to build those memories with my own grandkids. And that's what it's all about. And, you know, the summer is the perfect
Right,
opportunity to build those memories.
right,
Thank
right.
you.
So those are important. The memories are the only things that you have going for you. Everything else falls off. Memories are things that you take with you forever. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
thank you so much, and have a good night. And maybe we'll do this again. Okay.
Okay.
Be well.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.